Thanks for watching and liking the video. I was sitting in a hotel room in Berlin when an email came through on my phone. The subject line read, "Divorce papers attached." I opened it and saw the documents with her electronic signature. While I was flying across Europe for work, she not only filed for divorce, but also emptied out our account. And worse than that, another man was already living in our house. I married Amy 10 years ago. Back then, nothing came easy. We worked jobs that barely paid the bills, crammed into small apartments with peeling paint, eating whatever we could afford. But I always believed it was temporary. I thought we were building something real together, something that would pay off down the road. Every late night at work, every weekend I gave up, it was for us. She used to tell me, "You work too much, but I'm proud of you." I held on to those words like a lifeline. They made the long nights worth it. They gave me a reason to keep pushing. I thought she meant it. I thought she understood. When I sent money straight into our savings, I imagined it was for the two of us, for a future we'd share. I always had one fear, though. It wasn't failure or losing my job or even getting sick. My fear was being far from home when something happened. The thought of being overseas and getting a call that something went wrong, that haunted me. But I never thought the something would be her. Not an accident, not an illness, not bad luck. The one thing I didn't see coming was betrayal. And not just betrayal. Betrayal from the person I gave everything to. When that email came through, I stared at the screen for a long time. It felt unreal. Divorce papers? A signature that wasn't even done in person, but typed in cold black letters at the bottom of a PDF? I scrolled through the pages, and the legal language blurred together. My phone kept buzzing with work emails, meeting reminders, but I couldn't see any of it. All I saw was her name signed under words that cut through everything I thought I knew about us. The account, emptied. The house, taken over. And me, thousands of miles away, sitting on a bed in a foreign city, realizing that while I was out chasing a paycheck, someone else had walked straight into my life, into my home. I didn't feel anger right away. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't shout. What I felt was something heavier, something that sat in my chest and wouldn't move. 10 years of building, of trusting, of thinking I was creating a life for both of us, reduced to an email with an attachment. The one thing I always feared had happened. But it wasn't fate. It wasn't bad luck. It was her choice. And in that moment, I knew my life had just been split in two, before this email and after. When I left for that trip, everything felt steady. I wasn't worried. We had been saving for months, putting money into a shared account for the house renovations we'd been talking about for years. The mortgage was almost done. We had enough tucked away to cover us for at least a year if something went wrong. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we were standing on solid ground. I remember packing my bags the night before I flew out. Amy sat on the couch scrolling through her phone, and I told her where I'd left the bills and which card to use for groceries. She barely looked up, just nodded and said she had it covered. I didn't think twice about it. Why would I? Everything we had, I thought of as ours. My paycheck went into the joint account. Every password, every login, every detail, I had shared all of it with her. It never crossed my mind that transparency could backfire. The day I flew out, I even texted her the PIN again, just in case she forgot. She replied with a heart emoji and told me to have a safe flight. That was the last time I felt at ease about us. On the flight to Berlin, I kept thinking about how different things were compared to when we first got married. Back then, I carried a constant weight of overdue bills and final notices. Now, I was flying overseas for work, staying in hotels, getting a per diem that actually meant we could breathe. I thought Amy appreciated it. She used to say she couldn't wait to redo the kitchen, fix the backyard, and finally make the house ours. Those were the dreams we talked about late at night, lying in bed after long shifts. I saw this trip as a step toward that. Another paycheck, another deposit, another month closer to a life where we weren't counting every dollar. I had no reason to think I was walking straight into a setup. Looking back, I realized how blind I was. I thought trust meant giving everything without hesitation. To me, marriage was supposed to be one account, one roof, one plan. I thought the more open I was, the stronger we'd be. That was my mistake. When I left, I didn't double-check balances. I didn't set alerts. I didn't lock anything down. I believed we were partners, and that belief was the one thing she needed to tear everything apart. Sitting in that hotel room after reading her email, I replayed the weeks leading up to my flight. The way she seemed distracted, the times she brushed off conversations, the way she avoided talking about the future. At the time, I chalked it up to stress, to the same exhaustion we'd both lived with for years. But now it all looked different. It looked like preparation. I had trusted her with everything. And while I was gone, she used that trust like a weapon. About a week into the trip, I started noticing things that didn't sit right. At first, it was small. My texts went unanswered for hours. Normally, Amy would check in during her lunch break, maybe send me a picture of dinner or the dog lying on the couch. This time, her replies were clipped. Busy. Later. Can't talk now. I told myself she was tired. Maybe work was rough. Maybe she just didn't feel like chatting. But then the photos stopped coming. Our life had always been full of small updates. She'd send me pictures of the house, the yard, little things we were fixing up. It was her way of reminding me that everything I worked for had a purpose. Now there was nothing. Just silence, except for short, empty words. One night, while I was going over reports in the hotel, my phone buzzed with a message from my neighbor, Mark. We weren't close friends, but he knew I was out of the country. He sent a picture of my driveway. A dark SUV was parked there. Not mine, not Amy's, not anyone's I recognized. His message was simple. Did you rent out your place? I stared at that photo for a long time. My first thought was that maybe Amy's brother had come by. Or a friend. Something harmless. But when I texted her about it, her response came minutes later. A family friend helping with the yard. That was it. No detail. No explanation. Just words that were too neat, too fast. I wanted to believe her. I told myself I was being paranoid, that she wouldn't hide something like that from me. But the way she wrote it, short, without even naming who this friend was, felt wrong. It wasn't Amy's voice. Not the way she usually talked to me. I didn't reply right away. I set the phone down, stared at the ceiling, and told myself I'd let it go. I was overseas, and there was nothing I could do from a hotel room in Berlin. But the thought of that SUV sitting in my driveway wouldn't leave me alone. Every message after that felt different. When she said she was busy, I wondered who she was really with. When she told me not to worry, I wondered what she was hiding. The trust I'd carried for 10 years started to crack. I tried to push it down, to stay focused on work, but something in me already knew. Things weren't just off. They were unraveling. And the worst part was, she didn't even try to make it believable. It was too smooth, too simple, like she had practiced the line before sending it. When the divorce email finally landed in my inbox, my first instinct was to call her and scream. I wanted to demand answers, to ask how she could do this while I was thousands of miles away. My hands were shaking, and the words were already forming in my head. But I didn't hit the call button. I closed the laptop instead. I walked outside into the cold Berlin night and let the air burn my face. The city was alive around me. Cars, people, noise, but I barely noticed. I kept thinking, if I lose control now, she wins. That's what she's waiting for. An explosion. Rage. A mistake she can use against me. I wasn't going to give her that. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called someone else. Years back, I had worked with a lawyer on a contract issue. He wasn't a friend, just someone I trusted to be sharp. I sent him the email, told him what was happening, and asked him to check on our accounts. His answer came the next day, and it hit harder than the divorce papers. There's nothing left, he said. The main account is empty. The savings too. $300,000 transferred out. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at the carpet while his words sank in. $300,000. That was everything we had saved. Years of skipped vacations, second jobs, nights when I came home too late to eat dinner. All gone in a few keystrokes. I wanted to call her then, not to yell, but to hear her admit it. To make her say out loud what she'd done. But I didn't. I bit down hard and told myself again, if I break, she wins. The lawyer asked if I had noticed any activity on the accounts before leaving. I hadn't. I told him I hadn't even thought to check. I trusted her completely. My voice cracked when I said it. And for the first time, I felt the weight of my own mistake. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window watching the city lights fade into morning. My phone buzzed with more work reminders, but I ignored them. I was in Berlin, but my mind was back home, in a house I wasn't sure was mine anymore. The money was gone. The marriage was over. And still, I knew this wasn't the end of it. People don't move that fast without planning. She hadn't just walked away. She had prepared. and now I had to decide how I would respond. After the lawyer confirmed the money was gone, I told him to dig deeper. I needed to know what else she had done while I was out of the country. The next day, he called back. His voice was steady, but the words felt like a punch. "They filed documents to sell your house," he said. "The listing is already with a realtor. The signature on the paperwork is yours." I froze. That wasn't possible. I was in Berlin the whole time. I told him that. He didn't argue. He just said the signature was there, plain as day, sitting on the documents as if I had been the one to put it down. I asked him to send me copies. When the files came through, I opened them on my laptop and stared at the signature. It looked like mine. The curve, the slant, even the hesitation on the last letter. It was close enough that anyone would believe it. But it wasn't mine. That was the moment I realized Amy hadn't just left me. She had set this up. Every short message, every excuse, every missing photo, it was all leading here. And she hadn't done it alone. The name of the realtor on the documents was familiar. I pulled up the picture Mark had sent me of the SUV in the driveway, and it clicked. The friend helping with the yard wasn't some random person. He was the realtor, the same man who now had my house listed under a fake signature. They were working together. While I was halfway across the world, they were moving fast, emptying accounts, filing paperwork, preparing to sell the home I thought was untouchable. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a plan, detailed and deliberate, waiting for the perfect moment when I couldn't interfere. I sat in the hotel room with the documents pulled up on the screen, my heart racing. I thought about the nights Amy and I had talked about fixing that house, how she said she wanted it to be where we raised a family. Now she was signing it away behind my back with a man she had introduced as a friend. The lawyer told me this kind of scheme wasn't uncommon. People using forged signatures to push through quick sales, hoping the real owner was distracted or out of reach. That didn't make it easier to hear. I closed the laptop and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The house wasn't just property. It was every sacrifice, every late night, every piece of trust one had put into the life we built. And now, all of it was in their hands. The lawyer didn't waste time. He connected me with investigators who were already tracking similar cases. That's when the bigger picture came into focus. What Amy and the realtor were doing wasn't some sloppy mistake. It was a scheme. The agents explained how it worked. People going through divorces or clients who spent long stretches overseas were the perfect targets. Fake documents, forged signatures, quick sales pushed through before the real owner even knew what happened. By the time anyone caught on, the house was gone and the money had disappeared through layers of accounts. Hearing it laid out like that made me sick. It meant Amy had been planning this long before I left. She hadn't just walked away from me. She had walked into a system designed to strip me clean, and she chose to make me one of their marks. I stopped eating. I couldn't focus on work. I'd sit in meetings staring at charts and numbers while my mind spun in circles around the same thought. I was nothing more than leverage to her. 10 years of marriage, and when she saw her chance, she treated me like an obstacle to be cleared. At night, I'd lie in bed wide awake, replaying everything. The look on her face the night I left. The flat way she said she had things covered. The texts that suddenly felt rehearsed. None of it looked innocent anymore. Every detail felt like part of a plan she had already put in motion. People at work noticed. A coworker asked if I was okay because my eyes were red and I looked like I hadn't slept in days. I brushed it off. I couldn't bring myself to say the truth out loud. How do you explain to someone that while you're sitting in another country trying to do your job, your wife is back home emptying your accounts and signing your name on fake documents? The silence ate at me more than the betrayal. Amy didn't call. She didn't explain. She just vanished into this scheme like I had been erased. And that coldness, knowing she wasn't confused or lost or desperate, but calculated, cut deeper than anything. I kept thinking about how careful she must have been, waiting until I was gone, timing the withdrawals, lining up the realtor, choosing the moment I was weakest. It wasn't an accident. It was precision. And as much as it destroyed me, I knew one thing. This wasn't over yet. I could have walked away, signed the papers, let the house go, let her have whatever was left, and disappeared from it all. Part of me wanted to. The weight of it was crushing, and every day felt like I was dragging chains just to get out of bed. Forgetting her, forgetting the money, forgetting the betrayal. It sounded easier than what lay ahead. But something inside me refused. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about her anymore. It was about not letting them get away with it. 10 years of work, every dime I saved, every late night I gave up, it wasn't just hers to take. I couldn't hand it over like it meant nothing. When the investigators asked if I was willing to cooperate, I didn't hesitate. I said yes. My role was simple, but it wasn't easy. No outbursts. No sudden calls. No angry emails. I had to look like a man who had given up, someone who had accepted the divorce and moved on. They told me that if she thought I was still fighting, she'd back out, and the whole operation would collapse. So I played my part. I stopped messaging her. I stopped asking questions. When the divorce documents came through again, I didn't contest them. I signed nothing, but I didn't argue either. Silence was my only weapon. The hardest part was pretending. Pretending I wasn't boiling inside. Pretending I could still function at work, even though my chest tightened every time I thought about my house being listed under a fake name. Pretending I didn't see her betrayal every time I closed my eyes. The agents told me it would take time. They needed her to feel comfortable, to think she had won, to believe she could walk through this clean. My job was to keep still, no matter how much it burned. I spent weeks living like a ghost. Every text notification made me flinch, but none of them were from her. She had gone silent, letting the realtor handle everything. That silence was its own kind of torture, but it also meant the plan was still moving forward. At night, I'd sit in the dark staring at the box of documents I had printed, the forged signature, the transfer receipts, the empty balances. I didn't know if justice would actually come. All I knew was that if I gave up, it was over for good. When the agents finally called with a date, my hands shook as I held the phone. They said it was almost time. A staged meeting, one chance to bring everything to the surface. All I had to do was stay quiet a little longer. A month later, the call came. The agent said everything was set. The buyers were ready, their buyers. It was a staged deal, the final step before the house would be gone for good. My house. My signature forged one last time. The meeting was arranged as a final walkthrough and key handoff. I wasn't in the room, not physically. They told me to stay in the study, to watch through the feed and listen. If I walked in too soon, it would spook them. This had to feel real. I sat there, headphones on, heart pounding, as the voices carried through the line. The realtor walked in first. Confident. Smooth. He laid out the papers on the table like it was another day at the office. His tone was rehearsed, easy. He started talking about the urgent wire transfer and how everything was already approved. Every word made my stomach turn, because he spoke as if I had given him my blessing. Then Amy arrived. Not through the front door, but through the garage. She slipped inside like she didn't want to be seen. I heard her heels on the tile, then her voice, quiet, clipped. She was there to sign the move-out papers, to hand over the garage remotes. Just business. Nothing personal. Listening to her speak like that, so detached, was worse than hearing her admit what she had done. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't unsure. She was just cold, as if 10 years had been erased, replaced by a transaction. The fake buyers kept the conversation going, asking questions, flipping through documents. The realtor answered everything with confidence, pointing out my forged signature like it was ironclad proof. He even joked about how fast the deal had come together. Amy didn't laugh. She just kept filling in dates and signing where she was told. And then came the moment. He reached for the pen, ready to close it out. That was the signal. The doors burst open, and the agents walked in. No hesitation. No warning. Their voices were sharp, commanding. The realtor froze, his hand still on the pen. Seconds later, I heard the metallic click of handcuffs closing around his wrists. Amy stood against the wall, holding the garage remote in her hand. She didn't move. She didn't say a word. She just stared at the table, at the papers that had been her ticket out. In that instant, everything shifted. The man she trusted to carry this out was gone. The scheme had collapsed in the middle of my living room. And Amy, for the first time, looked small, cornered, alone. I sat in the study, listening to it all, my hands gripping the chair so hard they ached. The house wasn't sold. Not yet. And now, she had no one left to hide behind. The weeks that followed were a blur of hearings, paperwork, and long hours with lawyers. The evidence was clear, the forged signatures, the transfers, the staged sale. Amy's name was tied to all of it. When the judge read the decision, it was final. She lost everything. The house came back to me. The accounts weren't whole again, but a portion of the money was recovered. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like watching someone dismantle a life piece by piece, only to hand back the scraps. I handed in my resignation at work. The company offered to keep me, even suggested a promotion, but I couldn't keep going like nothing had happened. I was done living in airports and hotel rooms while my life burned down at home. With what was left, I bought a small house by a lake. Nothing fancy, just quiet. A place where I didn't have to wonder who had the keys or what was happening when I wasn't there. The first weeks in that house were strange. I'd catch myself checking my phone every few minutes, waiting for a text that wasn't coming. Old habits. The need to be available, to respond, to reassure. It took time to stop. I don't share accounts anymore. No joint cards, no shared logins, no passwords given out. Every decision is mine alone. It's not about money. It's about not leaving myself wide open again. In the garage, against the back wall, sits one cardboard box. It's hers. Old clothes, books, a few framed pictures. When I moved in, I couldn't bring myself to go through it. I taped the box shut and shoved it aside. Months have passed, and it's still there. Sometimes, when I pull the car in, I catch myself glancing at it, wondering what's inside, wondering if it would hurt to look. But I don't open it. I never will. The last thing she left in my life is sealed in that box. And that's where it's going to stay. Thank you for watching till the end. Let's keep the story alive. Drop a comment below. And of course, subscribe for the next video.